Okay, just so obviously you guys all heard that, so this meeting is going to be recorded and then posted on our website, so if you have a problem with it, then please email us. All right, so today's meeting, we have some announcements because we have some new people here. We're going to have our discussion, and then we have a little bit of a question for you guys about future meetings. We're thinking about doing like a fun meeting at the end of every month, so you'll see. And also, like we said before, this meeting's only going to be an hour long because I have to go take an exam at 8.
All right, so for the new members, we're gonna be having weekly Zoom meeting this time every Thursday. Usually we'll end at 8:30, but today we're ending at 8, as Lucia said. We have readings every week that we're gonna email to you guys. You don't have to read them, they're just like supplemental. We're going to summarize them anyway. And you can find Zoom recordings and slides on panelforyourthoughts.com. So if you missed something, or if you want to like revisit an idea, something you said, you can just go on there. And please fill out the discussion topic survey if you haven't yet. We have a topic submission form also if like you want to talk about something that wasn't included on the survey. All right, so now we'll begin with intros for the new members. Say your name, your major, where you're calling from, and what was your favorite TV show growing up.
All right, okay, I guess I can start. I'm Lucia. I'm a second year, I guess, and I'm majoring in neuroscience. I'm calling from Ann Arbor, and when I was super young, I was super into Barney, but when I got a little bit older, I watched more like SpongeBob and stuff.
I'm Tia. I'm also a second year. I'm a poli-sci major. We're both calling from Ann Arbor, and my favorite TV show growing up was Teletubbies. Tinky Winky was my favorite.
Tinky Winky's the worst one.
It was Lola, dude.
Yeah, Lola was the best.
Tinky Winky's like.
I agree.
All right. Should we call on people?
Yeah. Okay. Since Teddy was here first.
Yes.
All right. My name's Teddy. Hi. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering, and I'm calling from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And my favorite TV show growing up was probably The Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, good one.
I can go next.
Okay.
I'm Jane Kim. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm not majoring in anything. I'm calling from Collierville, Tennessee, and my favorite TV show growing up was probably like Disney Channel.
Okay.
I can go.
Yeah, Angie, go ahead.
Oh, should I? I'm Angie. I'm a freshman here at UTK, and I'm majoring in political science. I'm calling from Knoxville, Tennessee, and my favorite show growing up was, since both Barney and freaking Teletubbies were taken, I'm just gonna go I'm just gonna go with Wizards of Waverly Place. I'm missing it right now.
All right, Yara, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Yara. I'm an 8th grader at West Carville Middle, and my favorite TV show growing up was probably Clarence.
What's that?
It's on Cartoon Network. It's pretty funny. Jefferson, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Andrei. I'm a second year in biological sciences, and we're calling from Coventry, UK.
Hi, my name is Janelle. I'm a second year biomedical science student. Yeah, calling from Coventry. I'd say my favorite TV show was probably SpongeBob. Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, Magic School Bus.
Oh, that's also a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go next.
Is that all?
Jefferson, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My volume is kind of low.
Oh, it's
I'm Jefferson. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering, calling from Ann Arbor. And my favorite TV show, the Berenstain Bears. Oh, love that stuff.
All right, Brianna, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm a freshman going to UTC. And I'm majoring in psychology, and my favorite TV show was Wizards of Waverly Place as well.
all right. Thank you everybody for coming. All right, so today's discussion is going to be about like biological determinism. So it's about like free will versus our biology, essentially. So first, we've got to define what free will is. So what does it really mean to have complete free will? So like, does it mean that so like basically everybody knows that it's like about your freedom to make decisions, right? But like, where do we draw the line? Is it where we have freedom from social pressures, other people, our psychology, our biology, or can we even say that we don't have freedom because we don't have freedom from like the laws of physics, for example? So what does everybody think? Okay, maybe a simpler question would be like, do you think all our decisions and like our lives are already predetermined, or do you think we have control over what happens in the future?
I personally would go with like I personally think that it's all predetermined because I think about like okay, so you make a choice, right? Like you have two options. You take one. It's like why like what possibly could have been like the other path, I guess. So like as like I guess I use that as like a source of comfort because I'm like, okay, I don't know if I made the right decision. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, I'm on the right track because I felt like I needed to make that decision, you know?
So do you really believe that, or are you just making yourself believe it to feel better?
I think I do believe that.
Okay. Interesting. Does anybody agree with her?
I disagree.
Okay.
But to a certain extent, I feel like parts of our lives aren't predetermined per se, but if you're born in poverty, you're not going to work hard enough to get to someone else's level, I guess. So in a way, I feel like class and race and gender and sexuality all affects people because it's like if you're born into a place of oppression, you're going to have a harder time like getting to other people's level that don't suffer from oppression. If that makes sense?
Yeah, so we're all like kind of limited just by like our place in like the social structure.
Yeah, so it's like
example.
social predetermination, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if you are a poor person, you can make certain decisions that would affect your life. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like you're not gonna have the same opportunities as like a billionaire, but
Right.
you can still like change. You still have like decisions that you make on your own.
Okay, gotcha.
I would also think our lives are like predetermined because there's no like true randomness in the universe. Like if you make a decision, it's not like the universe is like flipping a coin and like deciding between which decision you're going to make. It's like whatever causes you to make that decision isn't random. Like you're always going to make that decision even if you replayed that like snapshot in time over and over again.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know. I've always just like I've never believed in fate. Like I just think that every choice you make changes everything. If that makes sense.
Okay. Why though?
I don't know.
So it's easy to think that, right? Because it feels like you're making decisions when you quote make decisions. For example, like if I decide what I'm going to eat for breakfast tomorrow morning, then I'm actually making some kind of choice, or at least it feels like I'm making some kind of choice.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't really know and have currently no way to check whether the universe can be considered a random event or not. It's not like we can just go back in time while observing from the outside and see if things happen the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Isn't this pretty much entirely based on like quantum physics, more or less?
So
Because we know that at macro scale, it's pretty much a rock will always fall down or stuff like that. But no.
though I don't know much about quantum physics, so someone can weigh in, but like as to like a certain extent, aren't like the movement of like quarks or whatever at least random?
Yeah, the thing is, can we say, or that's can that influence in time how our brains work, and can that be considered in any way like randomness? Is it the same as free will, or just different situations that make us do the same predetermined choices if you had access to the info?
What do you think?
So we might be in a situation where we don't have any free will, but you also have no way of, say, predicting the future. So you're stuck in like a limbo of no agency yet no foresight.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty cool.
Very interesting thoughts by everyone.
Yara, do you have anything to add?
Like, I feel like with free will, I like both. With predestination, right? Like having your like life set out or like already determined. I feel like I believe that to an extent, but I feel like in free will I can't really decide because I feel like your actions do change, but you're already destined to make those actions. If that like makes sense, it makes sense.
Can you elaborate?
Like, I guess I just believe in predestination.
Okay.
Because like I think that you're supposed to like you're destined to make those actions that shift your life basically.
Right. So are we like 50-50 or do most people just believe in predetermination? Seems like. Is anyone on Brianna's side here?
I think I am.
Okay, so Jane and Brianna versus everybody else. What do you think, Tia?
I like agree somewhat. I feel like everyone's stances were kind of approaching this from a different angle.
Right.
Like, yes, social predetermination, that definitely is something, but you can't claim it's predestination. It's not the same. That argument is not the same as people claiming that all your actions are predestined. Yeah. So, kind of agree a little bit.
But wouldn't that affect the way that wouldn't that affect how a person acts?
Yes.
So like to a certain extent, yes, because like you can't control like what situation you're born into, right? But just because you're born into that situation doesn't mean that your life is predetermined, because like clearly there's a lot of factors that go into what's gonna lead to the rest of your future. So we can't really say that just because you're born into poverty, for example, means that you're predetermined to like live a bad life. Like, of course you are limited, but it's like not to the extent of you don't have any free will.
Well, it just depends on which argument you're taking. Because like what you just said was like it was your argument because you're like I would assume that you like believe that we do have free will. Hey.
Well, I was like taking it from Brianna's side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
I wasn't saying like because you're born into a certain social category that you're destined to play, like your life plays out in that exact way. It's just that to me, saying that someone who's in poverty, who like is born into poverty, and someone who's born into like inherited wealth, saying that like both people have the same opportunity because there's free will doesn't mean that they're going to have the same opportunities.
Right. I see what you're saying, but we shouldn't like equate free will to mean that you don't have, like, free will doesn't mean you have the same opportunities. Like, we're just speaking about like whether or not you even have the choice to like pick what favorite, or like pick whatever you eat in the morning, like I mentioned before.
Like
Okay.
more with logical or like reasonable constraints, I guess, physical material.
I guess it's basically whether all these factors from societal status to like physics, whether they just influence an ongoing process of free will or just determine exactly what happens. Like, isn't this basically that's the big question we're discussing?
Kind of, yes, because we're going to, are we not leading into like biological determinism?
Yeah. So this was just like the broad question, obviously. We're like trying to take this from like a biological standpoint. So, wait, did I have to change this? No, I don't think I did. Okay, so let's just look at like the left side of the screen. What do you guys think about like cells, bacteria, plants, or mice? Like, a lot of people will think that like humans have free will because we have like pretty complex decision-making processes, or like much more than like other animals do. So like some people will think like, obviously bacteria don't have free will because they're just like running on their biological processes. But where is the line where we can draw a distinction? I know a lot of people don't think that we have free will in the first place anyway, but what might be the difference?
Personally, I don't think, like, I don't think that there's a line, because I think that everyone, like, including human beings, is, like, moving in the way that they are intended to move.
Sorry, Angie. I just want to say hi to Sophia, who just joined us.
Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
Okay, Sophia, so to get you caught up, we're just talking about whether we think that cells, bacteria, plants, or mice, or any animals really have free will, or like the ability to make decisions.
Okay, got you. Okay. Trying to decide where to prop this.
You're being recorded.
Okay.
Angie, can you say your last thought again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I kind of forgot what I was saying. There's like, I don't think that there is a line, because again, like, I think that we, like, everything, including humans, is moving in like the way that they're like intended to function, I guess.
So what do you mean by intended? Do you think
like by like the predetermined fate?
Okay. Okay, but when you say intention, it kind of seems like you think there's some like purpose behind it.
The purpose, I mean, I guess the purpose is just to like do what you're supposed to do. I don't know.
So like, what are you supposed to do is what I'm asking, I guess.
Like, it's relative for every person, right? Every person has a different fate. So they just do what they're supposed. I don't even know how to like elaborate on my idea. It just goes nowhere.
No, that's okay. I understand.
I think that like I would want to say that everything just like happens like randomly. We have no control over anything, but at the same time we can make our own decisions. But also like physics and like chemistry isn't just like random, I guess. Like, it makes like the way it works all makes sense. But like, why does it all make sense? Like,
so do you think there's like an element in humans that like allows us to be like a little bit separate from just our chemistry or biology? Because a lot of people, or like I argued in like that dumb paper I wrote, like that because everything we do is essentially, or I argue that everything we do is just like a product of our biological processes and our like brain activity, for example. So do you think there's like some part of the brain that we're not understanding, or like why do you think that you are actually making decisions when you make them?
I have no clue. Like I feel like how Angie said, how like her thinking that there is predestination helps her. I feel like me thinking that I have free will helps me. So like
Because it puts
it's
you in control, right?
yeah, like it's scary to think that I'm just doing stuff because it's directly due to biological things.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Brianna a lot. Like, I think like cells just like they're gonna do what they're like fated to do. Do you know what I mean? Like they're gonna multiply.
Yeah.
But I have a weird thinking point that like humans just their decisions aren't. I don't know. I'm confused.
So would you group mice with like bacteria or humans then?
Because
Bacteria.
Really?
Ooh.
So
I
like
don't know.
makes well, I guess I like want to know what you think the special thing about humans is. Like, do you think it's like our awareness of our thinking, or like is it because we're like so self-aware of ourselves?
Yeah, because we're like because we like think so much. The fact that we're like bacteria aren't thinking about if they have fated destinations.
Right, but just because you think about something doesn't mean like you are
True.
free from it. For example, like you can't sometimes people just like get angry, for example. You can't just think yourself into not being angry, right? Like
I'm
to a certain extent.
Yeah, Andre, what were you saying?
I'm basically at the other extreme. I think that from the perspective of them at least, bacteria do make choices. And it's been studied that essentially even the bacteria with more or less the same genetic makeup do behave differently. But of course, they don't have consciousness. But is consciousness the same as free will? Because, for example, if it was the case, we could say for sure that yes, we have free will because we are conscious of ourselves. And even this seems to be based simply on biological complexity. Like, it's clear that plants do not have the same complexity in their brains because they don't have brains. But we do know that, for example, there is that clonal colony in Latin America, I forgot its name, that's like tens of thousands of trees. And if you look at the way they interact when they receive stimuli, it's basically a huge network of almost neurons in how they work. And an organism of such size is essentially more complex than a human brain. It reacts and it interacts with its, environment. Like, I think that free will can be considered to be given to almost any biological system, but not what we would consider it necessarily. Like, for a bacteria to continue swimming into a environment that's dangerous to it rather than moving towards a previous safer one, that could be a manifestation of free will.
Yeah, I think I would argue though that there's virtually nothing more complex than the human brain. Maybe that's just me being neuroscience, but like I'm not sure that we can equate like plants interacting with each other on such a large scale as the same as what neurons are doing.
It's just like kind of different.
Yeah.
Depending
How
on
do
your
you
free will, I guess.
how do you rank complexity? Is it just number of neurons or feedback mechanisms or?
Well, I guess it's clear that the brain is so complex because it ended up producing our consciousness, right? And like, I don't think consciousness equates to us having free will, but I think it does reflect on how complex our brain is.
Yeah, but then you have to add on that we also have like bodies that can make tools. Like, how are we going to compare our brains to, say, a dolphin's brain? Because even if they had, say, more complex thinking, they couldn't manifest it in any meaningful way by our standards.
Right. But
I feel like if we were to say that humans had free will, then I think I would
Can you
think that
speak up, please?
Anything with a complex enough like central nervous system might be able to develop free will. It's not entirely like contingent on it, but it's kind of like a starting point, possibly.
or I think you might be able to say like even if consciousness doesn't actually give you free will, it gives you the illusion of free will because you're so aware of what your thinking processes are. So maybe it doesn't like, obviously the question of whether or not we have free will isn't like actually that important because we still live our lives like making decisions, right? But I still think that, I don't know, our brain complexity should, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I just feel like we are complex enough and our consciousness is like important enough for us to have the illusion of free will. And if we were to have, if like a dolphin had a brain as complex as we did, then they would develop like ways, like we might only think that our bodies are so specialized and good for like what we do because that's like how we have adapted to use our bodies, right? So like if a dolphin were to have a brain as good as ours, like who knows what they would be capable of.
So you're basically saying consciousness doesn't give us necessarily free will, but it does give us existential dread.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, definitely.
Which might be an indication of free will.
Yeah, I guess I can't really think of a reason why consciousness would give us free will. I don't know.
And so,
Like if
for
we,
example, can you talk about the free will of a system that goes above humans, like a city or a bee swarm or a swamp, for example, having a free will? Because they are obviously not conscious systems.
I don't think a system can ever have free will.
Well, we are systems, like humans are systems.
Yeah, which is why I don't think we have free will either.
So you don't think free will exists anywhere?
I guess not.
Well, I have one thing. It's like, I think this is common, I think, throughout like biological systems, is that they do anything to like remain alive, right?
Right.
So is anyone like, I just want to make sure, anyone triggered with like suicide? Like, is everyone okay if I talk about that?
Yeah, I think we're okay.
Okay. Like, if most biological systems do anything capable to stay alive, why are we capable of like committing suicide? Yes.
That's a good question. So like, I guess one could claim that we are kind of like an exception to the rule because we're so, because like our consciousness and our power of thinking gives us like so much power. Like no other organism would have, is like even aware of itself to the point where it could think about killing itself.
Organisms can choose death, like swans that starve themselves after their partner dies.
I feel like it's also, it kind of like, it kind of is confusing because like I know other animals like dogs, for example, like they can have depression, but how come like with how they act on it, it's just like, I mean, I've never like researched it thoroughly, but like, so I'm not 100% sure about this, but they kind of elicit the symptoms, I guess. but how come like humans a lot of times act on it?
So I guess either they aren't able, like as in they don't know that it's an option, or it's like not within their best interests, like because they are just biological organisms with no consciousness.
And even with the suicide like example and just the implication that it's an indication of free will, couldn't you just say it's like brain chemicals, just a bunch of things like going wrong? Because that's what depression really is. It's just the chemical imbalances in the brain, just that like that might drive someone to take their own life. So
Do you think
in that case, would that still be free will, or would that be, you're just a slave to the chemicals in your brain and everything else?
Yeah, so going off what Tia's saying, like if we boil all our like decision-making processes and stuff down to like our neurons firing, then like that you don't have control over whether or not your neurons fire. So why do you think you have control over your decisions?
I've never thought about it like that. Wow.
No, that's how it works to think about it.
What'd you say?
Well, that's how you perceive it anyway, like
Yeah.
depression or not.
Yeah. So I guess that's just like what I'm saying. Like we're just perceiving our own brain activity, and that's like why we think we have free will when we don't. So I know Jane, Brianna, and Angie disagree with me. So do you guys want to say something?
I don't know. My head is empty right now. I'm so sorry. I don't.
I feel like I agree with both sides now.
Yeah, I'm really confused right now.
It's okay.
Sophia, do you have any opinions on this?
Literally anything.
But it's like, okay, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Someone talking? Oh, okay. I like recently was like studying biology or something and know that like if cells can like kill themselves, as in like they can I think it's called apoptosis or something.
Yeah, so like it's just like programmed cell death.
Yeah, so like I guess in a sense they're killing themselves because in order like for like the body to continue living, like it needs to die. So like now I'm wondering whether suicide in people is because of like maybe like the chemicals in the brain are perceived as being like bad for the health of the body. So then you're just like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself. Right. Or if it's because it's a like example of free will. I don't know.
That's a good point. Like cells don't decide to kill themselves then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sophia, what were you gonna say?
Well, I think I could speak for Jane too. I'm kind of confused, but it's
What do
okay.
you want us to clarify?
Well, I don't know. It's just sometimes I'll say some things, but I'm like too scared to say it.
No,
But
say it. That's what we're here for.
okay, so this might be said in a harsh, dumber way, but I always thought as humans to be like self-absorbed. Like we think we are like the only thing on the planet, and like nothing else kind of like really matters than us.
Yeah.
So I think that we perceive that we have free will, and just other things don't think like that. They just go on and just live and don't really worry about the smaller things. And if it is like an obstacle in the road, then it's just what it is.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good point. So like there was a slide earlier, we were talking about this. So Sophia, would you think that like mice have free will, for example?
Okay, could you explain what free will like means?
So free will is like your ability to actually make decisions. So like obviously we speak about people making decisions all the time, but we're trying to think like, do people actually make their decisions, or do we just have like the illusion of making decisions? So
Oh,
like,
okay.
for example, a cell we would think doesn't make its own decisions because we know like, oh, it's going to change just depending on like what the environment is like, and it's like very easily predictable. So we're trying to see if that's the same case for other like more complex organisms like mice and like also humans.
Okay. Well, I just remember, I forget who said it. One of the, I don't know, someone said it earlier about dogs grieving or like another animal grieving for its partner. And I just like, think of how elephants can have, I'm pretty sure they can have depression or something like that. Or they can feel grief and they like remember like someone who has passed away, and just how it's similar to how humans would react, but how it's also different to how humans would react to grief.
Yeah. So do you think that like elephants having the capacity to have depression gives them, or like do you think that like proves that they have free will?
I mean, the more I think about it, it's just like half the time I'm like, yeah, they can have free will, but at the other half the time I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. Like they don't really have it. So it's kind of a battle in my mind right now.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
I feel like part of it is possibly like why humans think that they have free will is the fact that we're aware of our own mortality. Like I know other animals like elephants, and I'm pretty sure whales are aware of their own mortality. So like we think about like our lives and our decisions and like the small aspects a lot more than other organisms like mice and bacteria, who like their sole function is to just reproduce, survive, and like for the greater good of their population. But like I think that's also what ties into why humans are one of, I'm pretty sure they're the only organism that commits suicide. So it's like I feel like that kind of ties in to why we think that we have control of our decisions.
Okay, so you think that because whales have like an awareness of their mortality, that gives them also the illusion of free will?
Well, I'm not sure about how their brains comprehend things. Like,
Yeah.
so although they are aware of it, I feel like it's more, it plays more of an effect on humans' brains because we're complex.
Okay, so you think our complexity is what gives us our like illusion of free will?
Yeah.
Okay. So wait, so do you agree that it's an illusion, or do you think we actually do have free will?
I think it's an illusion.
But I would say, like, I haven't really said this but yet, but I feel like it's a mix. I feel like we have free will to some extent because we don't decide like where we're born or to like which parents or to which kind of lifestyle. But I feel like in that kind of way, it's fate. But then the decisions we make in that is like our free will. Because I don't know, someone can be born to rich parents but decides to, I don't know, separate from them. But then I also feel like it's down to like a chance and also environment. Because, for example, obviously everyone decides to wear clothes, that's like a normal thing. But like we have styles as well. So we can decide to wear like a different kind of hat, a different kind of bracelet, or maybe no accessories or jewelry. But like with bacteria, I feel like that's mostly down to the environment because on that kind of level, it's on a cell kind of specific level.
Mm-hmm.
So they respond to changes in the environment, and they have like receptors which decide how they like react to things. So
yeah, so all organisms are like doomed to just like respond to their environment, right? But when you say that like we have our own styles and like we pick our own clothes and stuff, do you think that like I guess the question I'm asking here is like, are we actually picking those things, or is that just a result of like a really, really complex mixture of genetics and environment and all of that stuff?
I guess that's a good question to ask because if you like consider like twins, you know, we usually see them dressing the same way, maybe talking the same way, doing the same things.
Yeah.
But I guess and like if you consider twins, they have like the same kind of experiences and like they live in the same kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like because they know that they are twins, I guess, they act in that kind of way. But if you consider people that grew up in the same kind of environment, like say my neighbor, like obviously we have differences.
What are you saying? Like, what's the idea? Yeah, but I mean, even there, like with twins, there is intrauterine interaction, and there are studied cases of, for example, one twin hitting the other, and even then, we cannot ignore these aspects. Like, I don't think it's related to the wider question.
Yeah, so like obviously there are going to be differences in twins even if they grow up in a very similar environment and if they have like the exact same genetic material. It's just like I don't want you guys to think that when I say biological determinism, I'm saying that like genetics plus environment equals all behavior. I'm more saying like plus our just like internal biology that's happening like right now as well. Like for example, when I decide to speak these sentences or whatever, I'm saying like they're just a product of me, or not me, but like my brain just firing a bunch of neurons to like figure out what I have to do right now. And then that's like what's happening. I'm not really making any decisions here. It just feels like I am because that's the way human consciousness works for some reason.
How do you feel about like I'm just worried that this like way of thinking could maybe lead to like a lot of like misogyny because it's like there are biological differences between men and women, so what about that? Like
I don't think
it's like it's not so much like the direct biological as in like your body or things. It's like, are you sad right now or happy because you know, because of the experience, like because you want to be happy, like I can't really explain it. It's like, yeah, am I talking right now because of the hormone, like does my voice sound the way it is just because like of hormonal reactions, just like neurons firing haphazardly just like to produce this sound? Or is it because I am deciding to sound like this?
Yeah, because it's just like even if we go up to like the highest level of the brain, it's like the prefrontal cortex, right? Like that's like the like most executive area of the brain. Like that is also just a part of your brain. Like the part of your body that's making most of the decisions that you're making is just like a little mass of a bunch of cells, right? And if you claim that we have a soul or something that like gives us like the gift of free will, then like I can understand your point of view, but I don't really see how we are not just a product of all this brain activity and like just your biological activity. It's like if you think about like a reflex, you can't control your reflex, right? Like when the doctor like hits your knee or whatever, your leg is going to jerk off whether you want it jerk off up, even if you like don't care whether or not it does. Like that's gonna happen like no matter what.
Or like stumbling on your words.
Yeah, like
that's not-
it's just like it just happens. It's not me being like even when I decide to like drink a glass of orange juice, it's not like I am actually making a decision when I make that decision. I'm just responding to what my brain is telling me to do.
But isn't that free will? Like from your definition to like of like whenever you were explaining to Sophia, like the idea of free will, you were like your brain making the decision, right? It makes the decision by firing these like neurons, right? And like releasing these chemicals so that you actually do what your brain wants you to do. And this goes to the next, I think it's like the next debate or something. And it's like, you know, brain versus body or whatever.
That's what this one is. Like so
No. I'm so smart.
I'm kind of asking you when I say like your brain activity doing stuff, I don't mean that like you your brain or are you your consciousness? I think you are just your consciousness. So your brain telling you what to do is just like your consciousness is just you experiencing what your brain is telling you to do. So I don't think that means it's free will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that, I think.
It's just like a lot of people who are like, oh, there's differences between the male brain and female brain, so they use that as an excuse to like.
I don't think if we studied the brain enough, it would lead to a misogynistic conclusion. I honestly think it would lead to like a 50-50 type deal.
I mean, science is seen as neutral, but it's always been used to justify whatever kind of oppression is fashionable. The
Yeah.
thing is, like, we can agree that it's not just the brain, even if it's biological determinism. Like, there are those studies about how the gut affects it, or the entire endocrine system, and so on. Like, even a heart problem affects the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if it's just decision making, well, in the end, the brain's function, if not role, is to be a decision making center.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like the biological standpoint, I feel like can be used to justify a lot of things that like
it was.
if it's predetermined, then it's okay, right? But like it's not okay, even if it's predetermined. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, anything can be used to justify oppression, and mostly everything has been used in that way. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I did not think about it like that. I was thinking more like small scale. Interesting.
Wittgenstein, I think was his name, related to animals. He said that if a lion could speak like our language, we could not understand it. I think that's a pretty big deal, not just when we talk about free will in animals, but also between each other. Because I feel like each of us understands free will as a different thing. So this wasn't even, you know what I mean?
That's not what I meant to do. Go back. Okay, guys, I've got to go, but Tia's gonna keep this meeting going for a little bit longer. Okay, did it work?
Did it?
Okay. Awful. Okay. Don't speak. All right. Bye, everybody. It was a really good talk, but I gotta go take my exam now.
Bye.
All right, good luck.
Thank you. How do I leave? Oh wait, I have to stop my share. Okay, I can.